every car, every bus, every bicycle, every pedestrian, everything that's moving. You're going to create a digital twin of the entire world.
Welcome to the edge of possible.
You may not have heard of Qualcomm, but you have definitely used their products. Many major smart device manufacturers use Qualcomm's technology, ranging from physical chips in our phones to the 4G, 5G, and soon 6G networks that connect them. But in the lightning-fast tech industry, what's cutting edge today can become obsolete tomorrow. Qualcomm CEO Cristiano Amon is prepared to bet the farm to stay ahead.
If you look about companies in the mobile industry, to every generation of wireless, there was a big cemetery of companies, and we're still here.
Cristiano credits the 40-year-old company's success in part to its culture of reinvention. In Cristiano's 5 years as CEO, the company has evolved from one that's highly smartphone dependent to one that's working in automotive, robotics, and wearable AI.
Jewelry, pins, pendants, things that you wear, and it can connect you to an agent.
I met with Cristiano at Qualcomm's high-tech headquarters in San Diego. Robot incoming. He's giving us a big warning. To discuss how Cristiano and Qualcomm are building what could be our next primary device after the smartphone. I'm Alyson Shontell, and this is Fortune 500 Titans and Disruptors of Industry. We'll be back with Cristiano after a message from our sponsor.
Fortune spoke with Deloitte US CEO Jason Gerzadas on understanding quantum computing and how he sees it transforming industries.
Quantum computing has been a topic for some time in research circles, certainly closely watched by business, but it's fundamentally a different computing paradigm that uses the principles of physics instead of mathematics to drive the computing outcomes. And I think the real uses will be ultimately around very complex optimization scenarios, further enhancements to scaling machine learning, and also very complicated simulations that could be relevant to a whole host of different business applications.
What steps should leaders take to prepare their organizations for quantum computing?
It's really about readiness planning right now and preparing an organization to understand the implications, understanding what skill sets would be required, what type of cybersecurity protocols would need to be in place to make it viable in an enterprise context, and begin to think about the types of use cases that would be very germane around optimization and simulation.
Cristiano, thank you so much for sitting with us for the Fortune 500 Titans and Disruptors podcast. You are sitting in the center of the universe of AI. I'm not sure that people realize quite how much Qualcomm is embedded in pretty much everything that they use from a device standpoint. Can you maybe just give us some size and scale to it? You're 117 on the Fortune 500. About 5 billion devices are powered by Qualcomm chips.
And counting.
And counting. So kind of give us some scale to what you're doing here.
Yeah, by the way, thank you for taking the time. Very happy to be here talking to you. Look, Qualcomm's a very unique company. We used to say, before people got to hear about Snapdragon, we used to say Qualcomm's probably the biggest company, nobody knows about it. I think when we started, it was about creating the fundamental technology that everybody uses now. I think for wireless, we have been into every generation of wireless, but as you look at what happened with the wireless revolution, and I think you look at our smartphone right now as most inseparable device, our technology basically propelled by the scale of the mobile industry, it starts to go in many different places. And I think today, I think Qualcomm not only is in the smartphones, I think we enter into the PC space, we are into the wearable space, those future personal AI devices. We're going very large scale business now in automotive. It's in people's cars, and it's going to industry and industrial, and all the way to what is going to be the future robotics and data center. And I think we're very happy. We have a very large-scale semiconductor business. I think most of us grew up in the company within mobile, but we started to see the technology became relevant to so many other industries, and I think that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I think of you all as sort of like the brains of the tech that we use every day, and increasingly so, whether it's the cars we drive or the phones that we use or the computers we're on, you all are there embedded in the devices. We just had a new issue of Fortune come out, and our cover is the AI tipping point. It feels like we're very much in a new wave of AI where maybe it hasn't really hit peak consumer yet, and people are still kind of wondering on the whole, what is this and how do I use it and what's it mean? But certainly from the standpoint of the capabilities of AI, it feels like we're at this just straight vertical line up. Would you agree with that? And what's happened? Maybe you could give us like some big picture of what has happened the last few months that has made it so.
100%. I think we have been preparing for this point. And we look at this a little bit different than some of the other companies. We build a lot of devices that people, use every day, and devices how people are going to interact with AI. And there are aspects of AI that are going to change how we actually think about computing in general. I think the way we look into this is everything we do, it's going to be processing some form of AI or connecting to the cloud to do a lot of AI. This is how we're going to go to this transition of computing that we don't worry about OSs, we don't worry about applications. And I think what is causing this tipping point is that in this year, 2026, we've been saying that that's going to be the year of agents. It's now you have agents that can, make AI useful to do many, many different things. And I'm going to break this down into different aspects when you think about the evolution of AI. I think we all heard about ChatGPT. There's a chat box. You go in and ask a question. But then you also have this incredible development about how AI just become the next higher level language that you can use to write code. But then there are other aspects. One aspect is, and we've been saying that I think since the very beginning, which is now because of large language models, because of large visual models, the AI understand the world the way we understand the world, communicate with us the way we communicate with natural language, and that creates a new user interface between the humans and the computers. And now once you have all of those things put together in an agent that you can tell the agent what you want, that's going to fundamentally change how we interact with those devices. And with that, I think AI started to get a lot of scale. I think people are just starting to understand that they're agents for everything now. They're agents that are going to go into the computer, do things for you, is going to go to the cloud and do things for you. And I think that is how we're going to start to see massive amount of scale into everyday things that we do on the consumer space, on the enterprise space. And we're excited about that because it's going to create a big cycle of new devices. They're going to be intelligent, they're going to be smart, and they'll be connecting us with those agents.
AI-powered devices often demand lightning-fast networks to operate fully, something that Qualcomm and Amon have spent decades building. Qualcomm technology powered the launch of the 3G, 4G, and 5G cellular networks. Amon, who first joined Qualcomm as an engineer in 1995, directed Qualcomm's global 5G rollout. Today, Amon is eyeing 6G, which he believes will deliver the efficiency and performance required by applications like holograms, collaborative robots, and driverless cars. I was really struck by your MWC, your World Mobile Congress conversation about how we've gotten from 2G to now 6G and the ecosystem of you. I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through that. You've been at Qualcomm a long time, 30 years. You're actually a boomerang CEO. You were here, you left, you came back, you've risen through the ranks. But walk me through that transition in tech and what 6G means for people like you and me.
Every even number generation of wireless is huge. So 2G was huge, 4G was huge, then 6G, just being an even number, is going to be huge. But I think beyond that, I think 6G is one of the probably biggest transitions we're going to see in wireless, and it's going to be way beyond, I think, how we think about wireless, just connectivity, but it's going to be also how AI is going to be part of the networks, and it's going to feel a little bit different for the entire sector. One of the things I said in MWC, and I wanted to be provocative on purpose. If you remember how telecom started, right? You have a dial tone and you call somebody, right? And all of a sudden you look at telecom today, it's very, very different. You have, a very high capacity data network where you stream television, you do data, you do computation on demand, you do a bunch of different services way beyond calling somebody. I think that type of transition is going to be also what's going to happen when you go to 6G. So we talk about agents a lot. One of the things that we are seeing now with those agents and this new kind of classes of AI devices is we are going to see devices, we call them personal AI devices. Glasses, for example, it's very natural because, If the AI understand what we say, what we hear, what we see, glasses is very close to our senses, like close to your eyes, your ears, your mouth. You turn your head, you see things. And all of this information, it's going to be very important context for agents to do things for you. So one of the features of 6G, of course, is I need to have a network that everything that I see can get streamed to the cloud at a very high performance and high speed. So all of us are going to be walking cameras, right? And this concept of see what I see is what 6G is going to do. So one of the features of 6G that consumers relate to, what is this radio going to do for me? It's going to be a very fast uplink. If you think about what happened with 5G, 5G enable streaming on high definition video to your phone, to your laptop. Now you're going to stream information up to the cloud, which is going to be very important context for agents and for models. That's the connectivity side. But the big picture of 6G is because RF signals can be looked at as physical AI.
And what's an RF signal?
It's like a radio signal, a radio frequency that go from the tower, the base station to your phone. So that's how you transmit data, over the air. All of those signals, which are electric magnetic waves, we're going to look at those things as physical AI. It's just sensor data, and you can apply AI to the network to make sense of all of these things. So if I give you an example, when I look at my automotive business and we have assisted driving and autonomous systems and we have input from a bunch of sensors, there's cameras on the car, but it also has radars, like a radar, send a signal, I'll get a reflection back, and then he maps everything around you. Sometimes when you look at some demonstration of some advanced driving system, you see the screen, all of the different cars that the radar can detect. So think about every single one of us connecting to this 6G network, the radio that we transmit and we receive. When the AI process all this data, this is like a radar at scale. So another thing that 6G is going to do, not only at your neighborhood, not only at the city, at the state, but at the entire country level, will map the digital twin, I think, of the world. And that also become very interesting. Of course, in today's, I think, environment, if I say that, everybody will understand it. Like you can do drone detection. Everything that is moving is going to be tracked. You have a radar at scale. You can manage the entire future aerial economy. The things that we also look at maps and you see, is there congestion here? Is it green? Is it yellow? Is red? With 6G, you'll be able to map every car, every bus, every bicycle, every pedestrian, everything that's moving. What are the roads? Everything around you. You'll be able to use AI to refine and detect different objects. You're going to create a digital twin of the entire world. And that's going to be very, very important data for agents as we continue to evolve how we think about computing. So 6G is a big transformation. You probably saw I'm very excited about it. Yeah. I think, and it's also for a company like Qualcomm, it's perfect for everything we have been doing, how we're diversifying. We can come up with an end-to-end story from the device to the network and to the data center.
There's so much to unpack there, and I want to get to a lot of it. So for just the average Joe out there, it's more data, more personalized data than ever before will be collected and will be usable to create a personal relationship with our devices. But there's so many applications for that we can get to a really granular level of understanding everything kind of out there. But I wanted to talk about that relationship that we're going to have to our devices, and then also what the future format could look like for what our devices will be. It sounds like we're moving from a relationship with our tech that it's responsive to what we want, to anticipating what we want, and sensing in the world because of all this extra data. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I think one of the things you said, as you summarize it, there's an important point. When you think about what our relationship with devices is an example. For example, I think the first personal device we all got to experience in computing was the PC, like the first device. And we started doing a lot of things on the PC. But then the phone arrived. And what happened is people didn't abandon the PC. You still have it. You still use it. It's incredibly useful. But certain workloads did shift from the PC to your phone, because now you have the computer with you all the time. As an example, when e-commerce started, people started to do all of the e-commerce on your PC. Most of the world right now will do e-commerce on the mobile phone. So, but now fast forward to what we're starting to see right now. You see all those different companies building what we call personal AI devices. You saw a lot of the AI companies. There are some secret form factors that I cannot tell you about it, but I think we're working with pretty much all of them.
Yeah,
I
so
think
like OpenAI, Meta.
all of them. And you have different things that people wear. Glasses is the easiest one to understand, but they're going to be more. They're going to be jewelry, pins, pendants, things that you wear, and it can connect you to an agent. And now have this conversation. If the AI understands what we write, can read everything we read, see everything we see, the type of use cases are going to be a lot more personal, needs to have a lot more context, and needs to happen a little different. Because if it not, you just pull up your phone and you do it today. So how do I describe that, I think, for you? Like, for example, you'll be walking around and you have a glass and you're going to say, I really like this. I like to buy this. How much is it on Amazon? And it's going to say, oh, this is how much it is on Amazon. And they're going to say, can you render how I'm going to look with this? And it's going to get rendered. And so it's going to be a different kind of low friction experience. And workloads are going to start to shift in the same way they shift from your PC to phone. Certain things you're going to do with an agent. We even have this example that we often say, which is shows the importance of context. You're going to be walking around and the agent's going to say, I just noticed you have 10 minutes right now. Can you talk to me? I have a conflict on your calendar. I would like to ask you for options. Like, it's very interesting how also those things going to interact across devices, which is, a meeting pop up and the agent said, you have a conflict with a doctor appointment. Do you want me to call the doctor for you and reschedule? And then, we actually call and it said, I'm calling on behalf of this person. I would like to change the appointment. What's your availability next week? So those are going to be different type of use cases. And as they started to get developed with low friction, we're going to see they start interacting with them with other types of devices. And the way to think about this is the way we've been talking about the ecosystem of you as an example. There's a big shift in the industry. We are coming from, and we're very proud of it because we had a big piece of that in a world that is a smartphone centric. The smartphone is the center of your digital world. And then what happens is everything is around that smartphone. That's like you pick your smartphone and you're going to do everything with it. If you have a wearable device, the job of the wearable device is just to extend the functionality of your phone. Like people sometimes buy the wearable from the same brand as the phone because it's kind of
right. Like time, Apple has the watch in the phone.
You send sensor data. That's best. Now the center, when you use UI in an agent, the center of your digital life is no longer the phone. Is the agent. And the agent will manifest itself on your phone and your PC and across different devices. You're going to see a lot of discussions about experience across devices. And when you have this shift, the agent needs to understand context to be proactive. You have models that have been trained today on all of this data that we created and put it on the internet. Mm-hmm. So you go in, you look at the books and social posts and you train models. Think about tomorrow, if all of us walking around with cameras to see what we see, that amount of data is massive, will dwarf the data that's been training models today. And that's how AI is going to evolve, and it's going to be very personalized to you.
Qualcomm technology has been embedded in smartphones since the earliest models. The company locked down early deals with industry leaders like Apple and LG in the early 2000s, and smartphones today are still about 75% of Qualcomm's high-margin chip sales. But rapid advancements in AI are now expanding the mobile technology landscape beyond the smartphone. Rather than moving away from the phone, Amon is leaning in, developing new tools and systems that connect and enhance the devices people already use. You sit in a position where you see what Microsoft is building, what OpenAI is building, what Meta is building. We've talked some about the glasses, but what future form do you think really will be the one that wins?
Look, you're going to have many, right? And the interesting thing about those agents is they have to be with you all the time. So that's why we saw the whole concept of wearable is turning into a personal AI device. And it's going to be things that you are comfortable wearing. You have the mix now of fashion and technology, and you have AI that people wear.
And available for me to
yes.
buy in stores like 2027, 2028 even.
I think so. You're going to start to see some of those towards the end of this year.
Amazing.
Yes.
Awesome. So smartphones have been the primary device. How much longer do you think smartphones will be the primary device for?
I think it's already in the process of a change. I think what is going to happen, if I have to make a prediction, and it's super hard to make those predictions.
of course.
So I'll say, I'll give a 50% chance that I'll be correct. But I'll say this year will be the year of agents, and you started to see more and more form factors of things that people wear. When you start to get to 27, 28, you're going to start to see workload shift. The smartphone's not going to go anywhere. But here's how I describe this. If you pull up your phone, you have to pull up your phone, open your phone, and lock your phone, and you're going to do phone things, right? However, the phone is not natural for you to be pointing at things or picking up your phone and you talk to your phone. So as you have those other devices, certain things, not everything, but certain things is going to be more intuitive to you to just do it. Like, for example, let's say you wear a smart glass that has a camera and you get a restaurant bill and you look at the bill and it has a QR code and say, pay this, and just notify me what's completed. And that's it. It's done. So I think what we're going to see within 27, 28, I think there's going to be a lot of workloads going to shift to those devices.
And will those devices be on market by then, you think? We see the smart glasses
the
already.
Devices are starting to get on market. I think 27, 28, they get scale. Like one of the things we talk about it is those devices right now are now in the tens of millions. I think in within the next 5 years, it's very possible they're going to go to hundreds of millions and going to get to billion. And it's all about the maturity of agents and maturity of agents doing things for you. And then it's going to become very, very natural. And I believe that's how we're going to see all of us going to have different devices. And it creates another interesting dynamic.
But do you think there'll be a primary device for agents? Like, will there be like the pendant or the glasses? It sounds like you're pretty bullish on glasses.
I'm bullish on glasses.
Yeah.
I'm very bullish on glasses. And the reason is because, look, I wear glasses, but I think humans are very comfortable with glasses. And glasses is very natural. You turn your head, that's where the camera is going to see what your eyes are going to be seeing. Is very close to your ear, is very close to your mouth. You're going to read something, the camera can read it. So glasses, I think, is the primary form factor. But let me tell you something important about this. When you buy a PC, it's a consumer electronic device. You buy a phone, it's a consumer electronic device. You have consumer electronic brands. But when you think about things that you wear, because it's close to you, close to your senses, and agents seems to be like very low friction, intuitive, that's our fashion devices. So now you have the mix of fashion and technology. It's very interesting. For example, if you look at some of the glasses company, they can become a technology company. Their multiple is going to expand, but you're still going to be buying a fashion device. Would you believe that a consumer electronic company will do one glass in 6 colors and everybody's going to wear that, or people are going to pick the brand that they want? And I think what's going to happen is you're going to see more things that we wear becoming smart, and it's going to be a new set of players. One thing I can tell you with precision, every new generation of wireless, just think about mobile as an example, the players change, the industry change. So I think we're going to see that again.
So you'll think there'll be like an Apple or a Google of the future AI device?
I think in personal AI device is more horizontal, and it's gonna be less concentration. It's gonna be a lot more fragmentation, because not everybody wear the same clothes, not everybody wear the same glasses. So I think you're gonna have a number of different companies, and the key thing is gonna be the control point. They used to be the OSs and the App Store, become the agents that you use. And it's not going to be like one agent that rule it. Oh, it's going to be different agents. They're going to be different agents that you're going to choose to use. And I think the interesting thing is you started to see things like with OpenClaw and a bunch of things getting installed.
OpenClaw, for anyone who doesn't know, is like, it was a big agentic AI moment that really took over the internet. It was released and it could do just incredible things, although there's a lot of cybersecurity issues that came with it. Like people's like digital wallets were coming online and things.
The reason I brought this example is because it's just not unique to just those personal AI devices. Even your phone's going to change. As an example, in the last earnings call, we talk about this. Nobody paid attention to, but we said that ByteDance in China, launched a smartphone, And the smartphone had an agent like OpenClaw, and basically is the same thing. You talk to the phone or you text your phone and you say, do this for me. And you go to your phones and go to your apps and start one app, close another app, and start doing things for you. So I think we're going to see the control point of the industry is changing. It's not about the OS and the App Store. It's going to be, what are the agents or the claw that you're going to select? It's going to be multiple of it. It's going to do things for you on your existing devices. And then there are going to be new classes of devices that you're going to use with your agent of choice that's just going to be doing things for you as you go, about your day. And I think that's how this thing is going to pan out and how AI is going to get scale. Maybe that's why I go back to how we started. That's the tipping point.
As AI becomes ubiquitous, Amon is repositioning Qualcomm to meet the moment. The company has invested in the quickly growing automotive AI market, which is projected to grow by more than 65% over the next 5 years. Qualcomm's automotive sector generated a record $1.1 billion in revenue in the first quarter of 2026, marking its second consecutive quarter surpassing $1 billion. In 2025, Qualcomm acquired semiconductor and wireless connectivity company Alphawave, a key step into the data center business. The company has also invested in smart home devices, robotics, and edge computing. I mean, I could future talk with you all day long, but I do also want to understand how you're navigating Qualcomm. Because in the last 5 years, you've been the CEO, you've been with the company mostly for the last 30 years. You've gone to lengths to diversify the business where smartphones and your Snapdragon chip within smartphones is still the top business for you, but it's not the only business line you have. I'm curious how you have, under your leadership, really put an emphasis on diversifying revenue lines for Qualcomm and how you've oriented your team to execute on it, because now automotives is a big space for you, meaningful revenue coming in every quarter, Internet of Things, PCs, and those things were not to the scale of what they were 5 years ago. So how have you oriented the team around this diversification mission?
It's a big, important topic for us. I think it has been our priority. I think my number one priority when I became CEO, Qualcomm technology is relevant to so many industries. We have ability to build a leadership position. How do we do this? And we do all of it at the same time, which is not easy because a lot of companies historically, they're not all very successful when they try to go to do new things, develop new core competences. I think the good thing is I could always rely on a very unique asset, the company. I think obviously very partial. I think I also started Qualcomm as an engineer. I think we have an incredible technical talent. And I think that was probably the foundation to what we did. We realized that we had a probably unique technology portfolio. I think most people think of Qualcomm like they think about mobile, but we have every single technology in wireless communication, not only cellular, we're number one Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and position location, but also we have every form of compute. We do our own CPUs or GPUs or neural processing units or image signal processors. So I organized the company in the way that we could leverage and scale our technology roadmap to serve the needs and the requirements for all different industries. Like, of course, for example, if you think about our GPU, from rendering screens, when you go to a car, you have to render 12 different simultaneous screens. You have to scale that capability. We have to build safety across everything that we do. So we built the engineering machine to scale our technology to other industries. We build different business units that will be really focused on building leading platforms for that industry requirements. We have to build a lot of different software teams. And what is interesting about this is we actually did this with the same level of operating expenses. We went from being in the mobile business to now being in the mobile, the personal AI business, the PC business, into the robotics, in industrial, in automotive, all the way to the data center, and doing all of this in parallel. It was not easy. I think we put a good face on the outside. Inside, it's like a pressure cooker. But I think the culture of the company, I think the company has a history of always reinventing itself. If you look about companies in the mobile industry, to every generation of wireless, there was a big cemetery of companies, and we're still here. We survive all of it. And I think this culture of the company to reinvent itself, to be able to be the curiosity, learn new things, innovate, do new things, enable us to build the structure and execute it in parallel. I think we're probably misunderstood as a company. I think people are always chasing the shiny object. People want instant gratification. I think when I look at investors, we have been on a journey, it takes time, of diversifying the business, growing the non-mobile business. I think as we get to the end of this first half of the year, we're going to, in our investor day now, the date's been set up, we're going to say what we're doing in data center, which we're very excited about it. But I'm a big believer in Qualcomm. I think what's unique about Qualcomm is we're probably one of the few semiconductor companies that can do a sub 2 milliwatts chip in a 2000 watts chip for a data center within that range, all of it in parallel. And that's kind of the motivation I have to keep executing on this strategy and diversifying, growing the company.
Your ability to like almost bet the farm on ideas as a CEO and kind of get the team oriented in that direction is great. And it also takes time. You have 75% of your business being a smartphone business 5 years ago to what is it today?
Look, I think our goal is to get to about 50-50 in 2029. I think we now been executing to about $22 billion of completely non-mobile business by 29. And that doesn't include some of the new bets, such as the data center as an example. Especially, I think you mentioned something about betting on idea. Not only betting on idea, also dealing with a lot of skepticism. Like when we said we're going to go to automotive, and so I said, you guys don't know anything about automotive. You were going to buy NXP, didn't go through. There's no way you're going to succeed. And look at today, we're probably the largest provider of advanced silicon for the automotive industry. Same thing, we entered the PC. Everybody said, nobody can go into PC if you don't have x86. And we said, well, I don't think so. We're just going to keep executing. This market's going to change. There's now people understand convergence between mobile and PC. Apple just launched the Neo that is based on silicon for mobile. We always believe that. So I think that's now is going to be our industrial and robotics business. So that's the conviction. I think that's the confidence in our technology and ability to build a leading platform, and the fact that we can compete and win in the marketplace.
So I want to talk about two of the new lines of business, and some are brand new, but data centers, I think, are, you really made a big announcement last fall that you're going into the space, and I'm sure more to come later this year. A lot of the CapEx spending from tech companies has been going into data centers. We know it can fuel the future of AI, but it also comes with issues, the energy situation here that prevents the scale. There's a report in Bloomberg recently that half of data center plans are kind of stalled or being canceled because of material issues and things like that. And then there's just a bigger consensus of like, are we overbuilding here? Could this like run companies into problems who are pouring lots of money in? Can you give me a big picture of like where we are in this AI data center boom and unpack that for me? Because there's a lot here.
Everything we've been talking about, what's going to happen with AI, it's going to change every compute. It's going to process a lot of data. It's going to have more and more data. I think the demand for AI computing, and especially inferencing, because see, you train a model, but then you wanted to put into production that's inferencing. That will continue to increase. And I think the demand of compute is going to be high. And the way I would describe this, whether people talk about, is there a bubble, not a bubble? Here's the simple way to describe it, and maybe a bad example because I don't think it's exactly like that, but it's the only example I can provide. Let's go back to the year 2000 when there was the dot-com bubble, okay? When people were saying what the internet is going to be at that time, I would tell you right now, 26 years later, the internet is way bigger than people thought. Whatever they thought, it was small versus what exactly happened. It didn't happen all in 1 year, but it did happen. I think in the long run, AI is probably still underestimated. The amount of compute and the amount of data is going to continue to increase, and it's going to increase not only on the cloud, it's going to increase all the devices are going to be processing AI. Just try to imagine this future. We're talking about all the different devices and agents and all of that. I think that is going to continue to go. We can have an argument about is the slope of the curve going to change? Is everybody now playing to win right now? I like to go back to this internet example in the year 2000. In the very beginning, probably people said MapQuest is going to be the map.
Right.
And maybe it isn't. Or Orkut and MySpace are going to be the social networks. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think we saw what happened.
Yeah, there's a first mover disadvantage there in a new market.
So I think what's going to happen is it's too early. Everybody's playing to win, and there's going to be maybe There's going to be a handful of winners. Maybe there's more. We don't know. You could argue, there'll be, as we go the next few years, you're going to have different changes in the slope of the growth, but the growth is going to be very high and will continue to be very high. On the short term, you have other issues. This is the growth of compute. This is the energy availability. And that is the reality. I think silicon moves very fast. Energy infrastructure projects don't.
Right. Especially here in the U.S.
And I actually think it, in many cases, is going to be like a global phenomenon. All of this creates an opportunity. And let me give you an example. Phone has nothing to do with data center, but I'm going to give you a phone example because that's kind of informs how we're thinking about what we're going to be doing in the data center. The phone is a very, very challenging engineering problem because if you look of your phone today and you look at your phone, go back all the way to the feature phone, right? Your phone has an incredible amount of computing power. There's a lot more things you can do with your phone, but still fits in your pocket. It cannot get hot. You're going to touch your face, and the battery didn't change much. The battery, the energy that you have is the energy that you have, and it has to last all day. If it doesn't last all day, it's not useful. I have to pack a lot of compute density in a very small space. I cannot have liquid cooling, and I don't have unlimited power. I cannot plug anything to the wall. So therefore, I had to go do something called the disaggregated computing. I have to design this specialized computing for every task. The way I'll give you an example is, I think you'll probably remember when all of us had iTunes and iPods. And in the PC, when MP3 started, a lot of the MP3 decode would be done by the CPU. Not in the phone. CPU burns too much power. We had to have a dedicated accelerator just to do MP3 decode. When you take a photo, we have a dedicated accelerator just to do JPEG encode, as an example. So when I look what's happened at the data center, I like to do this parallel. This is the demand of compute. This is the energy. So it's like, okay, you have to design a different architecture that is going to map what's the energy availability. So I think there's going to be now this new trend of different architectures for the data center is going to be energy efficient, and that's why we believe we have a role to play. For example, when we start talking about post-GPU architecture, people, said, you guys don't know anything about this. You don't know what you're talking about. The GPU is the do-all, is the solution for data center. Then NVIDIA with Grok, people said, well, maybe there are different architectures for different things. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're basically building a solution that is going to be, from a CPU perspective and inference perspective, is going to be more energy efficient, and it's going to be designed for when AI gets scale and companies are going to have to compete, total cost of ownership matter, and it's going to have like a different architecture about compute and memory. And I'm optimistic about it. I think we're going to tell the world what that is towards kind of the end of June. And that's going to be the next mission. I'm spending personally a lot of time on this and excited. I think that that's where maybe Qualcomm has a role to play.
One more on where you're heading. I want to get your perspective on robotics. There's been a lot of predictions about bipedal robots are going to be like, there's going to be 1 billion of them on the streets doing all sorts of things. It's just starting to really hit in industrial robotics. Yeah. Seems like that'll be the first place we'll really see them. But the Judy Jetsons robot in your house feels farther off. Can you just give me some perspective on robotics?
As you probably noticed from this conversation, I like drawing parallels and looking at things that we can learn from the past and apply it in the future. I'll do a parallel between robotics and automotive. For us, the reason we became successful in automotive is because you cannot put a server in the trunk of a car. So we needed to do a lot of computing. You needed to have very energy efficient. And I think that's why it was very natural for us to go to robotics. Robotics is an edge AI problem, like a car is an edge AI problem. And then my parallel comes when we think about robotaxi and assisted driving. When we go to automotive, in addition of providing silicon for the digital cockpit and processor for ADAS and autonomy, we also started to build a stack for assisted driving. And what you realize is there's everybody thinking about a robotaxi, and we're going to get there. But a robotaxi takes a long time for you to train. You train a stack from 0 to 95%. But for you to go from 95 to 99.999, so it's safe to the point that you remove the steering wheel of the car, you just sit and wait, that requires time, require mileage, require a lot of training. But the opportunity for assisted driving, when you there to pick up the steering wheel if you need it, that's massive. You can do that in every car. That's how I think about robotics. It's going to start with industrial. It's going to start with tasks that a robot can do. You can perfect a robot to do one particular task. You can train the robot on video. You can train by doing what we call teleoperations that the robot will imitate. It will be very good at that task. And then you download another task, we'll do another task. The robot's going to walk with you, do everything for you in our house, and that's going to take time, because every house is going to be different, how you navigate and all of those things. So I drew that parallel. I think there's a massive opportunity for robots in a lot of industrial settings, like something simple as restocking a shelf at night into a grocery store or a supermarket. So we're seeing a lot of activities from our customers, interest in our chips. Many of it's kind of the same recipe we use in automotive. That's going to be a big opportunity. And then eventually, the level of training and maturity will be like the robotaxi example, that we're going to have general purpose robots like the Jetsons. I think the opportunity is big. I think, physical AI enable those things. We like that as Qualcomm because, like a car, that's an edge AI. The AI needs to be in the robot. And
versus the cloud.
There's going to be things in the cloud, but the robot needs to do everything in real time. Mm-hmm. And that's really, the robot is the perfect case of an edge AI. And the robot has different levels, I think, of intelligence. We call them like System 0, System 1, System 2. System 0 is like, you get the robot is supposed to grab something and escape, and he go and grab it again. He has to be super fast, very low latency. System 1, you tell the robot, pick up this in the stable. Then the camera will see, recognize that's what it is, and pick it up. System 2 will reasoning and do things in the robot plus the cloud. It's a great opportunity, and I think we believe it's going to be significant, especially when you think about dedicated industrial use cases. And it's going to be robots in all sizes and form factors as well.
Amon is a techno-optimist. Since taking the reins in 2021, Amon has helped turn the tech of science fiction into reality. Qualcomm is pioneering hands-free driving, humanoid robots, and AI tools designed to proactively finish tasks before they're even asked. The company's San Diego headquarters is a living lab of these projects in action. But skepticism around AI remains high in the US. A 2025 Pew Research Center survey found that half of the American public are more concerned than excited about AI entering their daily lives. Amon and Qualcomm want to bridge that gap, turning extraordinary tech into everyday tools. In a world where we already are feeling some techlash, there's like small movements where people are saying, oh, throw out my phone, my smartphone, I just want to be on a flip phone again, or kids are resisting Facebook and they're doing other things. Are we just too close to it? Like, you and I love technology and you wear glasses and you want lots of data, but do you think actually the public and the consumer will want to be sharing everything about their lives and data like that?
It's very difficult to answer this question, but I think I will answer this with two different data points. One data point is if it's useful, if it's helpful, users are going to embrace it. I think we've been talking about this issue of privacy, but if you just look at what happened over the past few decades, I think more and more, users, especially on the consumer side, signing up for different platforms. If it's useful, if it removes friction, it's a better way for them to do things. I also think agents will remove a lot of the clutter that exists with technology right now. The other part of the answer is actually more important. This is going to further separate who should be the custodians of the data, who are the trusted companies, who are not the trusted companies, because when you think about all of us, for example, being walking cameras, this is now a significant level of capability above and beyond, I think, what we have today. And that's why we see a lot of interest, for example, in 6G. It gets often associated with conversations about sovereign AI and a bunch of other things because it becomes like a critical infrastructure, not only because of the ability to detect everything that is moving, is flying, but also because of the amount of data that is from all of us, which are going to be walking around and doing things in the world and sending data to the agents. So it's going to be a different world, but it's kind of what we have seen over the past decade. It's just going to be an evolution. More and more data is going to be on the cloud, and consumers are more mature about it. And there's going to be a lot of regulation about, what to do with this data.
So that's an interesting way of kind of thinking about who the winners of this could be. I think like it's so much of the AI world, it comes down to like who can you trust and what do you trust? And if anyone can create these devices eventually using these powerful LLMs and these agents, then it probably will come down to like, would you rather have Apple with your data or would you rather have Meta with your data? I don't know. Those are probably the trade-offs consumers will have to make.
The consumer is always a more complicated discussion, but let's just talk about enterprise as an example. That's exactly what you started to see right now. You have a lot of AI used for coding for enterprise. You have open source. You have different companies provide the service. Just look at about how companies dealt with their email. For example, their email, all of their internal data, who are the cloud companies that those companies have trusted to provide the service to them. So I believe you're going to see a lot of those things and create actually business opportunities for a lot of the enterprise companies. Go back to the comment you just said, OpenClaw. When it started, people said, is this thing safe? But you're going to see that there are going to be OpenClaw version of some of the major companies in the world for enterprise. And then you're going to say, okay, I will trust this company with my data. So I think that's how this is going to evolve. We're seeing now Claw for phones, Claw for PCs.
Yeah.
It's going to be in your car. It's going to be everywhere.
So I could feel the techno-optimism just like oozing off of you. You're so excited about what you're building, and as you should be, and you're really powering this AI future that we're all going to live in. I want to get your perspective on, there's a disconnect between like our level of excitement for this and the average person's excitement for this. People are seeing things like OpenAI just came out with a 13-point proposal equating the moment to the New Deal era, progressive era of history, where we need a new societal structure, new tax structure, new everything. Jobs might not be the same or even exist to some extent. How do you level with that? Like, how do we get your optimism to be contagious in a world where it seems like there's a lot for consumers to fear with this future?
First of all, we really thinking about how can we build efficient computing that enable this technology in the way that it can empower people. And I think we have a track record, which is the smartphone, like everything, like every new technology, you can misuse, you're going to have some drawbacks, but you look and aggregate. I think what the smartphone enable is connect everyone, empower people with information. In many countries, we see that all the time, how people actually became digitally capable and actually experienced the internet for the first time. It was with the smartphone. And I think AI has this capability to empower people. I am not one of those that think AI is going to be better than humans. I don't think so. And maybe because some of the chips that we do are the chips that the humans use. But I'll give you my personal reaction to this. I don't know if it's right. It's just my personal reaction. I graduated in engineering school in the early 90s. It was 92. You still have, in the early 90s, you go to the office and there's a fax machine and you get a bunch of fax. And I remember look at the fax and you have to type another message and send it. And then email started to happen. And then the internet happened. And you think about it, how big of that transition was when we didn't have the internet, we didn't have things like email, and then we had the internet. It changed how we do work. Those are a bunch of different tools, fundamentally very different. I also look the same way when you think about a software programmer. Computers will program in assembly language, like is the actual machine language. All of a sudden you have a higher level language like C that you can write in a higher, and now you have the AI that writes for you. So I look at those things as very powerful tools, and it can be misused, but it's going to be probably as big of a change as when the internet arrived, and we survived that. So I'm more of an optimist than a pessimist on this.
Well, I hope you're right. That sounds like a great future. And thank you so much for sharing your insights.
No problem. Very happy to have this conversation with you.
Me too.